If you take a look in the Hilchos Shavuos and the Shulchan Aruch, you don't see halachas negeya to Shavuos like you see by other Yom Tovim. Sukkos, these simonim about Daled Minim, these halachas, b'negeya yeshiva sukkah, Pesach, most of Chelek Hey, Hilchos Pesach, Matzah, Leila Seder, Shavuos, these minhagim, and we spoke about in the past, the years, the minhagim of Shavuos, milchiks, flowers. In today's Shiur, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to focus on Erev Shavuos. Halachos that are negeya to Erev Shavuos. I just want to say it's a kavod and a schus that I have my uncle, my dear uncle, with us today by the Shiur. I want to start with a halacha that's actually negeya, particularly for this year. We spoke a lot because Erev Pesach Shechalius B'Shabbos, there was a series of Shiurim, and then its negeya was Pesach Sheni, do something negeya, and Lag Ba'omer. These are interesting halacha, negeya dafka to this year. The Yemei Svira of not taking a haircut, the Avelis of Svira, 33 days. Some have the minig for the first 33 days till Lag Ba'omer, and some have the minig the second half. When you count the second half, it really varies and depends when you start for 33 days. That means if you start after Rosh Chodesh Iyar, you go all the way up until Erev Yom Tov. And that was taken a minig by many places, by the Chassam Sofer, to start ba'ofen that the 33 days end Erev Yom Tov, which means Shloishes Yemei Agbala, including today, you don't take a haircut. You only take a haircut Erev Yom Tov. We're not talking about Al Pi Arizal not to take a haircut throughout the whole Svira, but we're talking about being Noyek Svira 33 days. So the Chassam Sofer says, a year like this year, could you take a haircut today already for Shavuos? Why? Why would you think you could? If the Svira ends Erev Yom Tov, he goes on the Ramah. The Ramah says if Lag Ba'omer falls out on a Sunday, and you're counting 33 days, regardless how you're counting, but like Ba'omer is Sunday, Zok the Ramah, you can take a haircut Erev Shabbos. L'kavod Shabbos, like Ba'omer is Sunday, you can already take a haircut Friday. So what's about this year? If your Svira ends Sunday, could you already take a haircut today, Erev Shabbos? So the Chassam Sofer says no. What's the difference between when Lag Ba'omer is Sunday, that you could take a haircut Friday, and this year, and when Shavuos, you can take your haircut already Sunday, so why can't you take already Friday, Erev Shabbos? The chiluk is, when Lag Ba'omer is Sunday, so when you take your haircut Friday, Friday is Erev Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov. Masha Enkein Shavuos, this year, if you take your haircut today, it's not Erev Shabbos v'Yom Tov, it's Erev Shabbos. Yom Tov is Monday. It's not Erev Yom Tov. Sunday is Erev Yom Tov. Like the Chavrusa brought out very, very good. Even if you're going to hold, you can only do the last day, if the Ma'ayin L'Halacha L'Maisa, but if Shavuos falls out on a Sunday, and if you're going up until the last day, L'Chayru, what would come out is you clearly could take a haircut Friday, because L'Maisa there, it's B'doimet to what the Ramah says, Lag Ba'omer. And then he says, what's if there's a bris Sunday? My brother's talking making a bris this Sunday. If you hold the second half and it goes till Erev Yom Tov, could the Baal Bris, the Moil, the Sandik, take a haircut Friday? Why should they be at Tzadeh? Yeah. Because Lamaisa, the reason why a Moil, a Sandik, and a Baal, and the father could take it is because it's a Yom Tov for them. So it comes out for them, it's Erev Shabbos v'Yom Tov. So could they take a haircut? What do you mean? Just like Lag Ba'omer, you could take a haircut on Lag Ba'omer. Teretz says you could take an Erev Shabbos because Erev Shabbos v'Yom Tov. You can already chaparan kavod Shabbos. So could you do it over here also? Could they take a haircut Friday? So Lamaisa, Says the Chassam Sofer, Be'etzem, by bris, it's Erev Shabbos v'Yom Tiv. But Ayos, it's only a Yom Tiv for the Yachid, not for the Tzibur, they also can't. One more Nakuda, because we started speaking already about today, we're going to speak about tomorrow, Shabbos, but the Ikka focus of today's Shiur is going to be on Sunday, Erev Yom Tiv. This Shabbos, it's Shloishes Yemei Agbala, do you say Avarachmim? Do you say Avarachmim? So in Shari Ephraim, the emes is Bechlal, if you say Rosh Chodesh benching Eir and Sivan, which many have the minig to say. The Ramah says it's totally b'minig. The Goyen says there's a difference between Rosh Chodesh benching of Eir, because it's in the days of no Tachnun and Sivan. But let's focus on tomorrow. Do you say Avarachmim or not? So in Shari Ephraim, he says you say Avarachmim from Pesach till Shavuos. Tomorrow is still between Pesach and Shavuos. At Kedei Kach, and we spoke about it about 2 years ago, Shavuos fell out to be Sunday, which means Shabbos was Erev Yom Tiv. And over there, the Minchas Elazar, the Minkach Rebbe, whose yahrzeit was yesterday, he has a arichas about it. He's mitzaded lakan, and he comes out that you say even Erev Yom Tiv. And he says, it's Erev Yom Tiv. Even on Yom Tiv you say it. The day of Yiskar, the second day Shavuos, you say it. So it's not a zilzal in Yom Tiv. If you say Avarachmim in the days of Svira, because it's days of Avela, so you say it. Even Erev Yom Tiv. And Mela, the Shara Ephraim says you say it even during the days of Shlosh Be'Akbala. Just to point out, very interesting, the Tfilas Avarachmim was mesukin after the Gezerah of the Crusaders. If you take a look in the Kinos of Tisha B'Av, when speaking about it, it happened, you say it, Rosh Chodesh Sivan, in the middle of Halal, there was Harigas, and then B'Shlishi B'Sivan, Vaiter Harigas. There were certain Kehilos that actually only said Avarachmim this Shabbos. The Chassam Sofer brings that the Minig Ashkenaz was that this Shabbos was like Shabbos Chazoin. He says, "V'anu ein anu noigin came." But what I want to bring out, if you say Avarachmim, you should know it's not just by default. There might even be a reason B'dafka to say this Shabbos. But Lamaisa, like the Ramah says, it's totally b'minig. If the shul says, they say, and if the minig is not to say, you don't say. Very good. I have that written down. L'chayra should come out. Meister Rav says clearly that in Nisan he didn't say because it's days of no tachna. L'chayra, very good. L'chayra should come out. And over here also you don't say why not, because the Meister it's days of no tachna. Throughout, even if it's the Shabbos is before Shlosh Me'Agbala. These are meduber, maybe the Shari Ephraim and his Pirush on the bottom speaks out that you say it even if it's Shlosh Me'Agbala. But Lafida Goyen, that in days of no tachnas, even not Shlosh Me'Agbala, it's not out Shlosh Me'Agbala. Very good. Very good. Good. Let's start now from Matzah Shabbos. Agav, of course, the halacha is you don't say V'inoyam because it's not a full week. These are very interesting Peliyoyets in a Sefer Domestic Eliezer. The Peliyoyet says that the last night of Svira, for those that say the L'Shem Yichud, it says Tisperu Chamishim Sheva Shabbosis Temimis Tiyeno. The Lashon, you say Sheva Shabbosis. So he says the last night you shouldn't say it, because if you say Sheva Shabbosis 7 weeks, you were Yoitza counting Svira. So he doesn't say not to say the whole thing, to leave out this part, because if you say Sheva Shabbosis, you Yoitza Svira already. Lamaisa, the minig ha'olam is not to be choishish for this. Could be there are people, but Pashtas not to be choishish. And the reason for that is, the Mishnah Berurah says that if somebody counts on the week, let's say the 7th night, and he says tonight is a week, you're not Yoitza, because you also have to count the days. You're not Yoitza by just saying the week. So Mamela, if the last night of Sivira tomorrow night, you'll say tonight is 7 weeks, you're not Yoitza. So even if you say Sheva Shabbos, to me, he said 7 weeks, you're not Yotzer. Another interesting Nakuda, Lagabi, the last night of Svira, Erev Shavuos, this year Matzah Shabbos, the Maril, when going through the Maril and Hagim, when he goes through counting of the Svira, so he says night, the 4th week, the 5th week, 35, how many weeks he goes through? 42 is 6 weeks, 49 is 7 weeks. Then he says these words, Ulamachrasai, it's Erev Shavuos. Ulamachrasai, Erev Shavuos. Is he telling us that you should know that the night after the day after the last counting is Erev Shavuos? The Chaim Yaakov brings us a Shulchan Aruch that when you count the last night, you're supposed to say Ulamachrasai, Erev Shavuos. On the page, the Chaim Yaakov brings this Maril to say it. Lamaisa the Shari Tshuva also on the page says, no. He doesn't mean to say that you have to actually say it to count. He's telling you, you should know after tomorrow night after you said 49, but you should know where we're holding in the calendar. Tomorrow is Erev Yom Tov, but not that you have to say it. Lamaisa the Chaim Yaakov in his Tshuva Sefer Shavuos Yaakov brings in the Chaim Yaakov and Shulchan Aruch, he just brings the Maril to say it. But in a Tshuva Sefer, he brings that somebody asked him, maybe the Maril is only coming to say, you should know tomorrow's Erev Yom Tov. So he says, no. First of all, I'll tell you, if he means just to tell you that tomorrow's Erev Yom Tov, when he speaks on Rosh Hashanah the 2nd day, why doesn't he say Ulamachrasai, Tzom Gedalia? V'oid, he says, Ulamachrasai, if he's telling you tomorrow's Erev Yom Tov, Ulamachrasai, Machar Erev Shavuos. Maybe he says you're supposed to count. When you count the last night, you're supposed to say Ulamachrasai is Erev Shavuos. Why? Why do you have to add this on? We're going to get to it shortly. That he's about not making early Yom Tov because it takes away from the Timimois. It's cutting off from the days of Svira. So he says, you know why you have to count Ulamachrasai? Because every day when you count 2, 3, so the day goes till the next day when you count 4. Here you're not counting 50. So to include the whole day, so Mameli you're counting tonight and including tomorrow as part of the Svira. That's what he says.
Saying for the Lashon, for saying that you count, actually you don't count the 50. Right. So maybe when you're saying L'machrasai, it's called the Tisbu Chamishim Yayim.
We spoke about it last week, but we're going to get to it again. The Tisbu Chamishim and the Meshech Chachma will come back in. You're saying could be to include Tisbu, to Getel, at least to Getel Chamishim. Azoi, these halacha, the Mishabura brings in Hilchas Shabbos, you're not supposed to cut your fingernails and your toenails the same day. When you cut your nails Erev Shabbos, so then you one of them you do Thursday and one Friday. You're not supposed to do it both the same day. Is Mavur, the Chadusharim, the Kuta Mariach, and others say that Erev Shavuos you could, yes, cut both the same day, because Erev Shavuos, we're preparing ourselves for Kabbalah Satira, and it's all Bedoima, Klal Yisrael, the Torah with the Eibush, it's Bedoima, Kitaharis, Isha, Labaila, and over there, when she's Matar herself, she does do both on the same day, and Memela, Erev Shavuos, you could do both the same day. Lamaisa, the Matei Ephraim, extends this to every Yom Tov, because Lamaisa says Chayv Adam Latar Beregel, so every Yom Tov also you could. But something that possibly unique for Erev Shavuos would be to be able to cut both finger and toenails. There's another halacha that's unique, bedafka for Erev Shavuos. Lamaisa, it comes from Erev Shavuos. Hakazas Adam. The Gemara says that b'shas matan Torah, there was a zika, there was a mazik that went around. If Klal Yisrael wouldn't have been makabel the Torah, this mazik would have tevuach shema, would have Rachmana litzlan killed out Klal Yisrael. Because of that, it's a sakana to draw blood. And mainly, the Gemara says not to draw blood Erev Shavuos. But Maisa, the Gemara says already that it's not because of Erev Shavuos, every Erev Yom Tov. It's interesting, this halacha is not even brought in Hilchas Shavuos, it's brought in Hilchas Pesach. Every Erev Yom Tov not to be make his dam. But it's a din for Erev Shavuos. La'alocha l'maisa, the Mishabura speaks about it if it's only for health. What's if a person needs it, then you could. There's a discussion, maybe other Yom Tovim, they speak about maybe if you could take blood tests of Yom Tov, questionable. Some say that only drawing a little bit of blood, that's not what the Gemara is talking about, sure, but that's halacha for Erev Yom Tov. On this note, Rabbi Yerucham Olshan, the Rashiv in Lakewood, brings from this Gemara a siyua to what the Medrash says. The Medrash says, every year, I'm going to read the Lashon, Yalkut Shemayni, the Medrash says in Parshas Yisrael, Amra Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, the Eibusha says to Klal Yisrael, Bonai, my kids, hayu koirin as a parsha zu b'chol shana, read the parsha of Matan Torah every single year, v'ani male aleichem, ki ilu atem oimdim l'fnei Har Sinai, I'll consider it as if you're standing in front of Har Sinai, makabel the Torah. Which means the Medrash says that every single year, when we hear Kriyas HaTorah Shavuos in the morning, it's like we're being makabel the Torah now. It's a Medrash. Klar. This is a shmuz for itself, but on the note of saying the Gemara about not drawing blood, this halacha, this would be, also you see the concept, just because on the year of Matan Torah, there was a mazik going around, if Klal Yisrael wouldn't be makabel the Torah, what does it have to do with this year, that you can't draw blood? The Torah says, because every year, there's a new Kabbalah Satorah, Samelu, there's this danger every year. Now we'll go over to the final point in today's Shiur, speaking about Erev Yom Tov, all the way towards the end of Erev Yom Tov. Late Shavuos, Erev Shabbos, Erev Yom Tov in the afternoon. And we'll start with a Chassam Sofer and Drashos. The Chassam Sofer says that when the Torah says, Sheva Shabbosais Temimois Tiyenu, and there's so many halachas that are negated to Tmimois, if somebody forgets a day, could you still count with a bracha? The Chassam Sofer says that we cannot be Mekayim Tmimois. We can't be Mekayim Tmimois. Why? When do you start counting Matzah Pesach, the first day? And in Eretz Yisrael, at least, Yom Tov, there's a din of Tosfos Yom Tov, so it goes into Chalamoid. So you already started with a little piece chipped off. Erev Yom Tov of Shavuos, there's a din of Tosfos Yom Tov to bring in Shavuos early. So it's chipped off from the beginning, chipped off from the end, so maybe you don't have Timimois. He goes into a year when Shavuos is Matzah Shabbos, then you do have. That's not the discussion for right now, but on a regular year, you do not have Timimais. As a Dr. Chassam Sofer. But what you see from the Chassam Sofer, there's a din of Tosfos Yom Tov to add on, to bring in Shavuos early. There's a din of Tosfos Yom Tov of Shavuos. L'maisa, it's not so pashut. My the pshitale to the Chassam Sofer, that there's a din of Tosfos Yom Tov on Erev Shavuos, the Netziv, in the Pirush al Torah, in Parshas Emor, when the Torah speaks about Shavuos, the Torah says, V'krosam be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. Shavuos. What is the Torah saying? Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. What's be'etzem hayoyim hazeh? You could think be'etzem hayoyim hazeh means that Shavuos is only by day, not by night. He says Avad is no such havamina. Yom Tov is always night and day. So what's the cross of be'etzem hayoyim hazeh? Only by day, not by night? So he says like this: a chiddush. It's begedra drasha, or how he learns pirush amilis in the Torah Kedosha. Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh, that Shavuos, you cannot start Shavuos early. Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh, only Shavuos, not early. And he goes on, from here you learn that all over Shabbos and Yom Tov, you can make an early Shabbos, you can make early Yom Tov. Shavuos not. Shavuos, you can't make an early Shavuos. Now he says, it's not because of Tmimois, which we'll get to soon, or like the Chassam Sofer says, when you do it, it's a lack in Tmimois, you're cutting into Svira, we'll get to it. That's not, no, the Torah says, Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh, Shavuos is the day of Shavuos, not earlier. It's like a drasha, Gzeres HaKosef. He says it's not a chsar in Tmimois, because Tmimois is only in days. If you have chip off from a day, but a week, you don't, a week is a week, even if you're missing an hour, it's a week. A day, if you don't have 24 hours, you're missing in the day. In the week, it's not a, he says it's not a chsar, fine. Agav, this be'etzem hayoyim hazeh, what's the netziv? Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh, how do you attach be'etzem hayoyim hazeh? Middle of the day? Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh.
It says be'etzem, it means in the middle of the day.
Middle of the day, yeah. Yeah. See, to try him also, yeah. I was trying to. That's what it says. The lashon also be'etzem hayoyim hazeh, yeah. B'yitzuma shel yoyim, b'yitzuma shel yoyim. So what is it? The Briskarav al Torah says a different shot. He says it's different, the Yom Tov of Shavuos than the other Yom Tovim. Why? The Rambam says that if Eidim come later in the month to say to be Makadosh the Chodesh, even if it's the end of the month, L'mafreya the Makadosh the Chodesh. Meaning to say is no Eidim came, so they made the previous month 30 days. Then Eidim come 25 days into the month, and they say that no, we saw the Levon already a day earlier. Bezin's Makadosh the Chodesh L'mafreya, and it comes out that really it was only 29 days. You move up the whole month, the whole calendar a day earlier, which would come out if there was Pesach in those days, Sukkos. They talk Klal Yisrael kept Yom Tov. But Lamaisa, if you Mekadosh L'mafreya, it comes out that it was off a day. Zokta Briskarov, but Shavuos, that doesn't happen. Why? Because you could only be Mekadosh L'mafreya that month. If Eidim come and say that 6 months ago we saw the Levana, we couldn't make it till now, you're not Mekadosh L'mafreya, only that month. Once Nisan passed, and we went into Iyar, or let's actually call it Iyar, we went into Nisan passed, so we already know when Shavuos is, because it's the day number 50. So Mela, that's Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. It's a day that's certain that's Shavuos. Al Kapanim, we have over here a machloikis. The Chassam Sofer says you can make early. That's why you don't have Tmimois. The Netziv says you can't. On the note of not being maktem Shavuos, the Netziv says it's not because of Tmimois. However, the Taz, brought La'aloch in the Mishnah Brura, says that Shavuos night you shouldn't have a Ma'ariv early. It's very negay the shmuz of bringing in Shavuos early. It's late. The person who makes an early Shabbos every week. It comes Shavuos, it's come out from the latest days already. So a person wants to bring Shavuos in early. A person wants to have a longer Leil Seder. In Gateshead, they daven Ma'ariv 11 o'clock at night. But wait a second. The Alois is already early. By the time you finish the Suda, he's barely an hour to learn. The mice in the yeshiva, at least they used to do, is that they sit down 6 o'clock in the afternoon, learn till 11 o'clock. So they have the Seder they have before. You want to make an early Yom Tov. So the Netziv says you can't. The Taz also says you can't. You can't even have a Ma'ariv early. And the reason why is because it's going to take away from Timimos. The Chassam Sofer says you could. And he says it's okay because Lamaisa, it's okay, you could. And the Taka takes away from Timimos. The Taz says you can't. In the note of Timimos that you can't, the Taz says you can't even have a Ma'ariv. The Bogad Avram, however, says is that you can't make Kiddush early. A big nafkamina. We're talking about a solid 20, 25 minutes, even more. Could you daven Ma'ariv early? And by the time you come home after Ma'ariv, it's already by night, Leil Shavuos. It's a Shaila. The Yavitz in the Siddur, he brings that some are noyig also for Ma'ariv, and he says it's a minute kolish. And he says, Adarabba, there's a Mailagar to actually daven Ma'ariv early, Faket, to bring in Kedushas Yom Tov earlier. We'll soon see in a second. So how do you with Tamimus? We'll get to the Mamash in a second. If you take a look in the Shlah, the Shlah is Pashtas the Makoyer that brings B'Shem, and the Shlah says it's only Legabe Kiddush. Only Legabe Kiddush. So we have a Machlokes, if not the daven Ma'ariv early, at least not Kiddush. What's about Hadlokas Neiris? Shabbos, you light Neiris Erev Shabbos. You can't light Neiris on Shabbos, Fashtetzach. Yom Tov, however, you can light Neiris Yom Tov. These two menhagim, some light Neiris Erev Yom Tov, and some light on Yom Tov, totally b'minig. What's about Erev Shavuos? If you can't be makabel Shavuos early, could you, if every Yom Tov you light like Shabbos before Yom Tov, could you light Neiros Shavuos before Shavuos? So some want to say, if when the ladies are lighting, because ladies are potter, it's a whole Shavuos, potter from Sphere Saimer, so Memela, they don't have the din. To be moist, Lamaister Shlomo Zalman says that you could light Neiros early, and their masber on the bottom, maybe this is what he said, but their masber, because the whole not to make early is a chumrah. Rav Moshe Sternbach, Shlita, also in the paper that comes out, they bring that he says you can be Neiros. But what's Takat Pshat? Just mamash b'kitzur, I'm sorry, it's a bit overtime, but I'm going to try to be finished momentarily. The Panim Yafis in Pardas Yosef, and the emphasis that it's a discussion in every early Shabbos. There's really two parts to an early bringing on Tosefes Shabbos or Yom Tov. It's a big arichas, but mamash just the point. There's one part when a person is makabel Shabbos early, it could be legabe the isser of asiyas malacha, and then there's another part legabe kedushas hayom. Two parts. If you're only makabel early legabe the isser malacha, but not for the kedushas hayom, that's not going to be a lack in timimos. You can be madlik neiros, or Moshe Sternbach speaks out this nakuda, when you madlik neiros of Yom Tov early, it's only lagabi the isser malacha, but kedushas Yom Tov is on hold till Yom Tov comes. It shouldn't stare timimos. But this is a moerdigi yisoid to be masber those that hold that it doesn't stare timimos. The Chassam Sofer says you could do it, but it stares timimos. In his Oiris Shuvah, he says that making an early Shavuos does not stare Timimos. Meaning to say is, even if you're going to start Shavuos an hour earlier, it doesn't, there's no chasar in a Timimos. Why? So he brings a Taz, Lagabe Shmini Atzeres. The Marshal says not to make early Shmini Atzeres. Why? Because if you're going to make early Shmini Atzeres, it comes at night. So it's Shmini Atzeres, is it Sukkos? Are you going to sit on the Sukkah, but you can't make a Leishav Sukkah? It gets complicated. The Marshal. Zok the Taz, his Loshen, Haper Kodesh. Taz, the Rabbeinu Shalom that said to sit 7 days in the sukkah, Hu HaPeh HaKadosh, the Rabbeinu Shalom says that it comes the 8th day, Shmini Atzeres, and you don't sit in the sukkah. So it's not a contradiction. It works hand in hand. It's not a conflict. Once you bring in Shmini Atzeres early, it's no longer a sukkah. So now it's Shmini Atzeres. The Mela says the Cyrus Tshuva, why does the Taz say you can't have a Ma'ariv early? The Rabbeinu Shalom that says 49 days of Svira Tmimos also said that afterwards you could bring in Shavuos and even early. So it's not a Svira. You're not chipping off the 49 days. HaPeh HaKadosh, the Eibush that said 49 days of Svira Tmimos, also said Shavuos could come in early. So it's not that it chips off, just like Lagavi Sukkot. It's not a Svira. Now it's Shavuos, so we're done. It's customized for 49 days, I'll pay the Torah. So maybe it's not a stira. One more yishuv, maybe to say why it's not a stira. This is already my own, you could be chaylek. I'll pay the Meshech Chochma that we mentioned last week, and what my uncle mentioned before in the Tisper Chamishim Yoim. Mama's just to say it bakitza, but it's a moiridig yisoid. If anybody that wasn't here last week, the Torah says to count 50 days. L'maisa, we only count 49 days. Says the Meshech Chochma that tisperu does not mean counting. Tisperu means to differentiate. And that's why these other sviris in the Torah that we spoke about, that actually tisperu, you don't have to count. However, in the Svira, the only way that differentiate 49 days is only by counting. Zok the Meshech Chochma, you really count 50 days. Tisper Chamishim, you really count 50 days. You know why we only count 49 days? Because we need to differentiate the 49 days by counting, with the mouth counting. Day number 50, you don't have to count. You want to know why? Because it's already unique. It's differentiated by what? By davening, by karbonos, by being choyig di Yom Tov. So maybe, you know why it doesn't lack in Tmimos? Because just like in the middle of the Svira, if you make an early Shabbos tonight, is that going to shter the Svira? In the middle of the days, if you move a day like this, like that, it doesn't take away from the Tmimos. It's only because of the last day with the Meshech Chochma. The Meshech Chochma says, Tisper Chamishim, and we count 50 days. The 50th day is not prepared. So even if you're going to bring in Shavuos early, the 50th day is the full day. You can't leave Shavuos early, but the 50th day is Malay. It makes it a Tmimos. Just to conclude with a Yesoid that's Mavur and Avoidis Yisrael, we're holding now at the end of Svira. The whole Shiur today was about the last day. We're not holding yet the last day. We just went into the Shloisha Shemei Agbal, the last 3 days. He says, from the Machras of Pesach ad Machras HaShabbos HaShvis, he says that really to prepare for Kabbalah Satira, it's 49 days. You can't just come, you can't roll into Shavuos. You have to prepare Kol Echad Kefim Adregasai to put in Koiches. But he says, Umori de Gezach, he says that the Pasuk is being Meramis ad Machras Shabbos HaShvis. That means the way to do it is to count 49 days. However, if a person didn't do it properly, even the last day a person could buckle up and be mischazik. Kolshkim we're holding over here, it's 3 days, the Shlosh Me'agbala, we have Shabbos, Avada, we'll keep mischazik, and we should all be zoicha. Like the Medrash says that when these Kriyas HaTorah, there's a Kabbalah HaTorah, we should be zoicha for the Kabbalah HaTorah. Have a wonderful Shabbos and a good Yom Tov.